Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I really appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me watching my videos. My name is Andrea and I film videos all about cruelty-free beauty products, and one of my favorite brands is definitely ColourPop. I have a bunch of ColourPop related videos on my channel, so I will link the playlist in the description box below, including a bunch of reviews on their eyeshadow palettes. I think I've reviewed the majority of their palettes already, but they recently came out with 3 new palettes, so I thought I would review those on my channel as well. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's jump into it. So this video shouldn't be too long, but I will put timestamps in the description box below if you guys want to jump ahead. I will start with the Fame eyeshadow palette. The second one will be the Fortune eyeshadow palette, and then I'll finish up with the Perception, Shayla, and ColourPop collab palette. Okay, so let me start with the formula before I go into each individual palette. I think with these 16 pan palettes, they did something to the formula because these are the highest quality ColourPop shadows that I've tried. Honestly, I really enjoyed the formula that you found in the 12 pan palettes, but I felt like the matte shadows were really powdery. I could overlook it because I felt like they blended well, they held their pigmentation, but in general, I did find them to be very powdery compared to a lot of other matte shadows in my collection. I felt like when they did the Kathleen Lights Dream Street palette, they stepped up the quality with that palette, and that one was even better than their previous palettes, but I truly feel like these 16 pan palettes are so good. Like, they're so much better than the majority of high-end palettes in my collection, and they retail for $22, so you're really getting a great deal. Okay, so ColourPop released the Fame and Fortune eyeshadow palettes as part of their birthday collection. You can buy them together and save a little bit of money, or you can buy them each separately for $22. If you buy them together, you get the bundle for $42, so you only save $2, but if you were interested in them, that might be worth, checking out. I don't necessarily feel like you need to buy them together. I think if you're brand new to ColourPop, I would recommend starting off with one of these 3 palettes because I feel like the formula is so good and they're probably only going to keep improving it. But if you already have ColourPop shadows in your collection, you don't necessarily need all of these palettes. So both of these palettes actually come with 8 matte shadows, 6 metallic shadows, and 2 satin shadows. I feel like the Fame eyeshadow palette is something that you're either going to love and use every single day, or you're going to think is so boring and just completely write it off as soon as you see it. This palette is their first ever cool toned eyeshadow palette, and when you see it, I think the majority of people just kind of see a mix of like taupe shades. It's just funny to read the comments on any new release, but this one especially, just because there is not a ton of variation within the palette. This is a very light toned palette, so I think if you have a medium, tan, deep, or dark skin tone, you might want to kind of think through whether or not the majority of these shadows would work for you. I think the metallic shadows can work for any skin tone, but a lot of the matte shadows are just going to kind of blend into your skin tone if you have, a tan, medium, dark, or deep skin tone. It just kind of depends, and it doesn't look like there's a ton of variation when you look at the palette. They obviously do swatch differently and apply differently on the skin. Like, I really haven't found any overlapping shades, but I feel like you could get very similar looks with a lot of the shadows in this palette. So I do feel like they could have included some other shadows just to switch it up a little bit. That being said, they don't tend to go too crazy with their palettes. There are a couple of palettes on their website that have like brighter, bolder colors, but in general, their palettes lean very, very neutral. So I think if you're looking for like a staple, cool toned neutral palette, this one might be a good option for you. I don't think all of the shadows in here are extremely cool toned. I think a lot of them have more of like a neutral undertone, but it's definitely not a warm toned palette. I think this is going to be ideal for those of you that keep your eye makeup very simple. If you just go in with like a crease color and a lid shade every single day, and you like them to be a little bit more natural and cooler tones work for your skin tone, then this might be the palette for you. But I think if you like to go brighter or dramatic or, really intense, obviously you do not need this one in your collection. I think the formula is really good though. So if you're looking for a basic staple neutral palette, you would really enjoy it. The only palette that kind of, reminded me of the Fame palette was You Had Me at Hello. I feel like there are a couple of colors in You Had Me at Hello that are similar, but in general, I just kind of feel like they're complementary palettes. So if you have this one and you like it, maybe this one would go really great with it if you are interested in a complementary palette. There are a couple of overlapping shades, but not really anything, too crazy. Okay, so the Fortune eyeshadow palette comes with 16 shadows again, and like I already talked about, the formula is really good. So the formula is not an issue. It's whether or not you like the shades in here or you think you need them in your collection. Like I said, it's a little bit more warm toned. There's not a ton of variation within this palette as well, but there's definitely more variation than within the Fame palette. I think the Fame palette leans very, very light, whereas this one has a lot of lighter toned colors in here, but you do get some more medium toned shades, and then again, just a couple of dark shades. This palette's really beautiful. I'm wearing it on my eyes today, and I think it is a good staple warm toned palette, but I feel like if you have a lot of warm palettes in your collection, you probably already have a lot of these shadows in your collection. I don't think there's anything super unique about this palette. I think it's great to have all of these colors in one place, and I'm going out of town next week, and I'll probably bring this one with me because I feel like I can get, you know, lighter looks, medium looks, not anything too intense, but like warm tone looks that I love in general. So it is a good palette to have if you're looking for like an all-encompassing warm palette. But at the same time, I wouldn't say there's anything, you know, super unique about this palette, especially if you already have a ColourPop palettes in your collection, because there are a lot of these shades in other ColourPop palettes. So the first one is the Give It To Me Straight palette. The Give It To Me Straight palette is on the top, and I felt like this is like the perfect warm toned berry palette. I love this one so much, and I feel like it's so high quality, and I feel like the quality in this palette is amazing. It's outstanding, but I like the variation within Give It To Me Straight a little bit better. I just feel like it's the perfect warm toned berry palette. Again, they are complementary palettes, but I don't think you need both of them because I feel like there are a lot of repeat shades within these two. The Double Entendre palette is pretty similar to this one as well, especially the top two rows in the Fortune palette, and then a couple of the metallic shadows. I feel like Double Entendre is a little bit more like neutral in undertone. There are some warm tones, there's some neutral tones, but when you hold them up next to each other, there are a lot of similarities. So I think if you have Double Entendre, you definitely don't need to grab Fortune, especially, you know, for the neutral colors in this palette. If you love warm tones and you have to have it, I don't think it's a bad purchase because I do think the formula is really good. I just think you really could replicate a lot of the shadows in here. And honestly, I kind of like the Give It To Me Straight palette a little bit better just because I feel like you get some more unique shadows that you might not find in a lot of other palettes. So obviously it's personal preference, it's up to you. Out of the three, I think that I would most recommend the Perception palette. This is just such a high quality palette. It is $23, so it is $1 more than these palettes, but everything from like the outer packaging to the actual shadow formula is just so high quality. I feel like they could sell this palette for $50, and I think it would be worth the money. I hope they don't sell their palettes for $50 because I love that ColourPop is more affordable, but I truly feel like this is a beautiful high quality palette. This one does come with a mirror, whereas the other two do not, which is an added bonus. It's a very clear mirror as well. It's not like one of those weird funhouse mirrors, and the design is just really gorgeous. It has like that soft touch matte packaging, and when you open it up, you get the 16 shadows as well. This palette is like what I want to see from ColourPop. I think Shayla did an amazing job with the colors in this palette. This one is completely unique to the ColourPop collection. I went through all of my ColourPop palettes, and I really did not have one that, you know, is very similar to this. I think it comes with some staple neutral colors. So if you're looking at it left to right, like these two rows are something that you might see in other palettes, but these two rows are really unique, and I don't have shadows like that from ColourPop. If you're looking for like cooler toned pops of color or cooler toned darker dramatic colors, unlike the Fame palette, then this palette has it. It also has warm toned matte shadows, warm toned metallics. It kind of has everything. And while I don't find myself getting a complete look with this palette super often, I don't mind because I'll just reach for one of my other palettes to use alongside of it. If you're one of those people who really only sticks with matte shadows in the crease, you only get 4 matte shadows in here that don't have glitter in them. There are 6 matte shadows total, but 2 of the matte shadows have really obvious glitter. So these 4 matte shadows are kind of like the only true matte shadows in the palette, and they're very warm toned. So for me, I wouldn't really use those with the cooler tone shades. Some people do, I don't. I usually stick with like a pretty warm eye or a pretty cool eye. These shadows are just so richly smooth and pigmented and gorgeous and you can create some darker, deep looks with this palette. So I just think it's a gorgeous palette. I think they did a great job. It's totally unique to the ColourPop line, like I said. And if you want something more dramatic, more fun, more unique, this one's going to be a great option. I love that you get warm and cool tones. You kind of get everything in this palette. And I feel like it's a good introductory palette to ColourPop because you get so many different options and you can use it with other palettes to create like endless eye looks. So my final thoughts, just to kind of wrap it up, if you guys are into very, very neutral, everyday, cooler tone shadows, the Fame palette's going to be a great option for you. If you want something a little darker, a little deeper, skip over this one though. As for the Fortune palette, I don't think it's a must-have in most collections because I feel like the majority of you guys have warm tone palettes in your collection. But if you want all of your warm tone shadows in one easy to grab palette that's very sleek, very thin, really high quality, then maybe you would enjoy it. If you're looking for something to add to your collection, if you already have palettes that you love and you enjoy and you have staple neutrals, the Perception palette is going to be a great addition because it does come with some colorful shades, some neutrals, but I feel like in general, it would really only add to your collection. And it's just so high quality. There's something about this formula that's just a little bit better than the other shadows. So I hope this video was helpful. But if you guys have tried these palettes, let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.